Hey there everyone, Jeff here. So this is going to be the companion video to my Hawkeye 4K thumb review, and we are just going to try to make the image on the Hawkeye 4K thumb as nice as possible, for uploads or for putting it on social media or whatever. Right, so let's go ahead and get started.
First, let me show you the settings that I use on my Hawkeye 4K thumb. The first is the resolution, which I have set to 4K 30 frames per second 16:9, and this gives me the highest resolution possible. But if you want a higher frame rate, you can also set it to 2.5K, which is still high. It's still a high resolution video, but you get 50 frames per second in 4:3, which you can then just crop later on in post. So for metering, we're still at the default of average, which is the best thing. And sharpness, I set it to soft, so it's has a little less sharpening. And contrast, I've set it to the lowest setting, because you can always bump up contrast in post. Once you have it, once it's too contrasty, you start losing detail in the dark areas, etc., or in the really bright areas. And electronic shutter is set to auto. Now, normally you can, it's also recommended to, to set this at a fixed 160, so you always know what shutter speed you're shooting at. And this is 160 is great if you're shooting at 50 frames per second. However, since you can't really easily control your Hawkeye 4K thumb in the field, I would just set this to auto. Let's go over to the system settings, which is really not really accurate term. So ISO, I've set it to a fixed ISO 100. Now, if it's a really dark, dark situation, I'll probably set it to 200 beforehand. But if you're out in the field, you can't really change it. I think ISO 100 is a good place to start, or ISO 200. Color white balance, I've just kept it at stock, and FOV I've set it to large, just so that I can get the widest, widest image possible on this thing.
Now it's time to shoot some video, and then let's head on over to Gyroflow and Adobe Premiere Pro. So let's start up Gyroflow, and then here we're just gonna drag our video file onto Gyroflow. And yeah, okay, so once our file is loaded, we can head on over to the lens profile section. Under the lens profile section, we can just type in Hawkeye thumb, and it'll show you some options. And since we shot this at 4K 16:9, we're going to choose that. And down over under motion data, we click on open file, and we just look for the GCSV file associated with our video. And here on the right, just copy my settings. Here under synchronization, we've set the sync points to 3, etc. Our offset method set to essential matrix. So just copy whatever settings I have here, and then just click on sync, auto sync. So once it's created its sync points, we can just give our video a run through, and we can also set our in points here. Our endpoints, our in and out points, then just preview the stabilized footage from Gyroflow, and if it looks good, well, it's certainly looking much more stabilized now. We're just scrubbing through different areas of the of our clip. Okay, so once you're happy with that, just click on export and wait for Gyroflow to do its magic. Heading over onto Adobe Premiere Pro, I've already dragged my my clip onto the timeline. This is the clip that was generated from Gyroflow, and it's already stabilized. So we're just scrolling through the clip and looking at key areas where the the exposure is just where we want it, or looking for especially problematic areas. So here we're going to use this frame as our first reference point, and you can see that the blacks are not really not really black, so we can still move. You can still see in the microscopes that there's still some space at the bottom. You can still move the black slider down, and to really make our blacks black. Okay, so let's just nudge it down a bit, but you can see here over at the top that the whites of the buildings are already at maximum, and even bringing down the whites, the data is already clipped, so we're not going to adjust the whites anymore, but we can still move the shadows to something, to a level that we like or we're happy about, as well as the highlights. You know, we want it to be spread across the whole spectrum, our whole exposure. So we take a look at the rest, you know, some other parts of the image, and you can see that it's an overcast day, so the sky is clipped, the whites are clipped, and, you know, bringing down exposure isn't going to fix it because there's no longer any data there in the sky. So that's the limitation of flying here on an overcast day. So we're just going to bump up our saturation. Not too much. You don't want to oversaturate your image, just enough that it looks you know, nice. We're gonna also adjust our vibrance here in the creative tab. Again, you don't want to overdo it, just a little bit. You want to play around with it until you see an image that looks the best, while still, you know, looking a bit natural. Obviously, this is you want your colors to be richer than you know, to be appealing to the eyes. You want it to appear really rich, but not too rich that it hurts the eyes. So yeah, we're just playing through the clip, and you just want to, you know, while you're playing through the clip, you might want to adjust the highlights or the shadows, because here, if you remember, we didn't set our exposure to a fixed shutter, so you can see that the exposure is changing in bright areas, and it's changing also in dark areas. So if we had set this to a fixed shutter, then it's probably easier. But again, if we did that, then you know, there's not much you can do when you're moving from a bright to a dark area. One is going to either be overexposed, and or the other is going to be underexposed. So we can also play with the, you know, the temperature settings, the temperature scale here, as well as the tint. So it's basically, you know, setting it to something that you feel conveys the mood of the clip. Here I wanted it to be a little bit warmer, and I'm also correcting for the tint, which I feel is a little bit too green. Right, so let's just scrub through the other parts of the image. Yep, so we can see that we're basically there. So now it's just, you know, it's just a creative decision. If you want it to be really contrasty, you can bring down the shadows, or you can really bring down the vibrance, so, you know, you have a more muted look. You can also make this you know, really warm if you want to convey that, you know, warm sunny day look, or if you want to make it a little bit cooler, you can, you know, make the temperature towards the blue. So yeah, those are just creative decisions that you're gonna have to make depending on what you want to convey with your video. So that's basically the workflow that you're going to have to do with any of your video, but this was particularly how I did it for the Hawkeye 4K thumb. It's not really that much different from, you know, grading your GoPro image, but yeah, with the GoPro you can set it to a flat color profile, which gives you more flexibility when grading it. You can, since it's a grayer image, you do not tend to lose you know, image data in the highlights, because you know, you still have some latitude when it comes to exposure, when it comes to your whites and your blacks. So that's what I can see. The limitation right now is when you're shooting at a bright overcast day with a GoPro Hero, you can probably have some more data in those bright areas, but here you can see that it was kind of getting clipped. So yeah, that's basically how to color grade your Hawkeye 4K thumb. So well, I guess we're just gonna end it at that. Keep building and keep flying.